We're live. Welcome back to the Weekly Roundup. And we're going to sit here and talk in a circle for a second. Let's get right to it. Tolerance. There's a book I'm reading right now, and it has like daily quotes and affirmations associated with it. And the concept of tolerance was in there yesterday. And I just thought, what a great word tolerance is. And what it makes me think of is tolerance in my mind is the amount of force that something can withstand before it breaks. That's the technical tolerance of something. And to relate it to, the cliche yoga sayings, it's like I bend so I don't break. Or if anything or anyone can steal your peace, you are the loser. Tolerating something, though, is ever so subtly different. I think that the word gets thought of in a little different way. There's a difference between tolerating something in your business and through the filter of acceptance of reality and inclusivity and love and martyrdom, putting yourself out or accepting something to be true when it shouldn't be, and therefore actually costing yourself something. And so that's kind of a tricky balance. But the reason I bring it up is that I think that one, this is like yoga 101, and two, man, there's like 10 different ways that this shows up for studio owners and small businesses all the time. The examples that I spin us off with are, what you tolerate from your team, from your staff. And sometimes you're asked to tolerate a lot. So tolerating something from your staff, such as difference in opinion, stylistic delivery of whatever difference, like the human being, and just understanding that it's not personal, everyone's just doing the best they can, that's fine. But not setting boundaries or moving the goalposts or accepting that someone will just not do what they're supposed to do in their job, that's not tolerance. That's selling yourself short. That's astya. That's stealing from yourself or stealing from the business. By extension, I think one of the other things that, and this is a tricky one, I see a lot of especially newer wellness business owners, impact business owners, passionpreneurs mostly struggle with is the tolerance of non-success. And I say it like that because it's not failure. And that's actually the problem. If you're actually failing, if your business is actually struggling, if you're actually like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills this month, you got a fire under your ass and you start doing something about it. Most people. But that's not the same. And like, if you're succeeding, you're like, cool, I'm succeeding. But it's the gray zone in the middle. It's the like, well, I'm not failing. Like, I'm not going to close my doors next month, but I'm not succeeding. It's like, I'm not making really any money. And like, that's a toleration. I'm going to tolerate the fact that like, there's fucking no one coming in my doors. I'm going to tolerate the fact that I don't know how to use my software. I'm going to tolerate the fact that I'm just going to not pay myself this month and I'll just sneakily run my groceries through the accounting of my yoga studio somehow. And that's the kind of life that I want. To each their own, I guess. If that's really what you want, that's fine. But I think for most owners, that's not their ultimate vision. And so, yeah, tolerating things from members as well. Just because you offer a service to someone and you will be accepting and inclusive of anyone and hear out anyone's thoughts or feelings and consider what they want, doesn't mean you have to put up with bullshit. You have to tolerate that. It also means you don't have to fight them. But I mean, so I don't know. Tolerance it's an interesting thing. And to me, it's very related to how, as a yoga studio manager, a yoga studio owner, a small business owner, this is part of your yoga practice because you will have to figure out what this looks like, how to navigate this. I'm getting a bit rambly. Let me spin it over to you, Terry.
Well, I looked it up. So the origin, what is the actual definition? I love to do that. The roots of words.
Ooh.
And it comes from the Latin tollere, which I'm probably butchering, but basically donating the action of bearing hardship or the ability to bear pain and hardship. So that's
Yep.
actually the root of tolerance, is the ability, like you said, the ability to bear pain to the point of breaking.
Yep.
And, and tolerance, I think, and it's interesting, the use of this is where, AI and computers are so fascinating, because it's the use of tolerance over time. At the beginning of the 20th century, it wasn't a very common word in,
Hmm.
in actual usage. And guess where it's peaking now.
Yeah.
It's like the use in just even in the last 50 years, looking at this graph, the last 50 years, the use of tolerance has just accelerated. So I don't know if that's neither here nor there. It's just interesting shit.
Well,
Um,
I think it is here and not there. How do you respond to that? Neither here nor there. What's
neither
the
here nor
proper
there.
response to that? It's neither here nor there. I think it's here and there.
I think it's
I don't
here
know how
and there, and it's
it's
now.
it's here and there and now.
And
I
I will
think
not eat green eggs and ham. I will not eat them, Sam. I am.
Terry Zeus is on the meeting today. I think that it's a positive thing that a word like that starts to become a more common conversation or use. To me, that's an indicator of waking up more. It's a larger cultural awareness where it's like we should be discussing what this looks like. Uh, so that could be a very positive indicator in my mind.
100%. The other thing, what you said too, when you're talking about tolerance and what do you tolerate in your studio from your staff, it's interesting that as owners, we do tolerate a lot of shit that we shouldn't have to put up with.
Yeah.
Right. And I've had a lot of conversations lately. It's like your business, you need class descriptions, the pricing, all of those things you said as the owner. Right. And then why do we tolerate teachers telling us, well, I can't, you need to do this, or you need to do this, or you need to do this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, or this is the needs of the studio. Well, I can't teach it that. I can't do this. Can I do this? And it's like, it's not a negotiation.
Right.
Right. It's not a negotiation. It's like, these are the needs of the business, setting what the needs of the business are and filling the needs of the business, as opposed to, well, this is my need as your employee or your worker. You got to set your parameter. You got to set, we tolerate this. You have to set your schedule to what I can do. And I've been seeing that a lot lately. It's like almost the owners are afraid to say, no, this is the needs of the business. Can you do this? If not, maybe this isn't a job for you. Or if not,
Well,
I'm not going to hire you.
I want to spin it to Carol, but I think part of what you're saying, because it is a little complicated. This is not to come off as saying like you shouldn't consider
Right,
your staff's
right,
well-being or
exactly.
whatever, but you're right. Like it's too common of a thing. To me, what it talks to with the angle that you're looking at is it speaks to, again, that martyrdom of like not having clarity of boundaries and not having enough clarity in the relationship, not having clarity on what the studio's purpose, core vision, mission, values are, like, so then you find yourself feeling the necessity to quote tolerate this sort of stuff. But yeah, I think the weird thing about this is the more bullshit that you choose to tolerate through selling yourself short, the more you'll get.
Yep.
Like you actually breed more of it. That's the hard part. And if we look at that from a yoga perspective, like that is the literal antithesis of the core starting message of yoga asana practice. It's the airplane analogy. You put your mask on first because you can't help someone with, like, you can't offer something you don't have. I don't know, Carol, what do you think when you're talking about tolerance for studio?
I think yeah, it comes up a lot with coaching clients, the owners. A lot of times, especially if they're newer owners, I feel like they have this They want to have a collaborative work environment. They want to hear from their staff and take all those things into consideration and try to appease everybody. But the thing is, when you try to help, you're never going to, be everything to every student or everything to every staff member. And I think what that tends to breed sometimes is a lack, like you need somebody to be the point person. People want to follow, and so if you can step into that role and say, no, this is how we're doing it. This is why I plan to do it that way. I will hear you. Feedback is fine, but let's start with this and go from there. But yeah, it's a slippery slope because there's a point where like tolerance starts to become like you get walked over, you get walked on, and like you said, Josh, you get more of that. So there has to be a moment where it's like, no, this is, and I'm thinking of a studio owner I'm working with right now, and she's like, I'm stepping into it. Like I've had my studio over a year. There's no longer this point where I'm going to say,
Oops. She's emphatic. Careful.
You had the same thing. The freeze is like perfect. There's no longer this point where frozen. Oh no. Well, okay. I'm gonna pipe in here on this too.
Well,
sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
It was such a cliffhanger. It was
like,
such a cliffhanger. Carol,
sorry.
it was right at the, I'm no longer going to.
It was perfect.
It was perfect. So so what's the studio owner no longer going to do?
She's no longer gonna take it. Like it's time. She feels like, she's got a coach. She's got a coach on her side. She has more knowledge now. I think when she started the studio, I think she had just barely gotten her yoga certification. So it was sort of like she felt the need to have that input from everyone. And it bred this sense of like entitlement of the staff. And so yeah, but it is a slippery slope. And so we talked about like nipping those things in the bud a little earlier and making sure that that she takes the reins. So
and I think that's also the balance, going back to balance, is the balance of leadership. Is like you want input. You don't want to shut people down. You want to shut their ideas down. And at the same time, you're the captain of the ship. You're responsible for making sure the doors stay open, lights stay on, everybody gets paid. I actually had similar with a client that had been open not quite a year. And it was these two teachers absolutely like, we want to do a beginner series. We think we should do a beginner series because people aren't able to follow us and blah, blah, blah. And I would push back the whole time. I straight up said, you don't need to do a beginner series. Can your teachers teach me? Well, yeah. Well, then why are you doing? And sure as shit, the beginning series didn't sell.
Yeah.
And so
no. Yeah.
it
no one
didn't
wants
sell.
it.
Nobody wants it. They all say but it's like teach anyway. So then one of the teachers just was pushing back because what they did, they were offering 2 sessions. So they decided to combine it into one. So at least they had these 4 people. And I just said, cancel it. But she didn't want to do that. I said, okay, fine. So we did that. And then the one teacher that her session was canceled was like, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And it's like, yes, I did, blah, blah, blah. And then she just went off a deep end and just told her everything she was doing wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I'm a consultant and da, 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 da. And I don't think you're doing, and so what my client said, well, gee, I'd love for you to get on a call with my business coach. So she was like, can tell you why we're doing these things. And the ones, oh no, I don't need to do that. The teacher
Yeah.
was like, no, I don't need to do that. But what we talked about is, then I said, okay. And this teacher was one, she said, like, stepped in to fill a class at the 11th hour, was there to practice, and the teacher didn't show up and stepped in and filled the class. So she said, I don't want to lose that type of employee, a teacher, because she is willing to do that, but yet she's constantly undermining me and wanting to do all these other things. I want to do this workshop. And so I said, okay, here's the strategy. And you guys can tell me if you thought this, straight up tell me you think this was a good idea or not. I mean, I did it, is I said, okay, tell her that your new studio, and until the classes are at least all the current classes, because they want to put more classes on the schedule. Like, no, I said, until the current classes are 50% full, 50% of the time, this is what we have to focus on. This is our sole.
There's no discussion. Yeah.
There's no discussion. And said how, and I would love to do all these other things you suggested, and I've written them down for the future. Now, how can you, and get her help? You know, let's put our heads together. Let's brainstorm. How can we get more people into the studio? More people to our classes. I said, that's how I told her.
I like the idea of empowering them to participate.
Yeah, I said she
point.
wants to participate. So I said, that is my suggestion of how you get her to help you. This is what we have to do, because if we don't do this, we're not going to be able to do all these other things, because the studio is not going to exist.
Well, let me take this conversation in a slightly different direction, but directly related. It's like between the lines, what we're talking about here, relating it to tolerance, is tolerating the person and there may be imperfect communication with you, and realizing like they are attempting to do something and help in some way and redirecting that. Therefore, the tolerance is you don't take it personally as the owner.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you move your boundaries. It doesn't mean that you don't run the show. It doesn't mean you don't grab the reins. But like the tolerance is in being a professional, basically. Look, if there's anything that I fucking know from being in the yoga world forever, it's that everyone's fucked. I'm fucked. You're fucked. Maria's a crazy ass. Carol is mysterious. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it going, Carol. I'm gonna keep it going. That everyone's got their shit. That's the thing. So tolerance can sprout from an empathetic, not pity, an empathetic understanding of the human condition, where like everyone's doing the best they can for the most part. So I'm going to tolerate some of your shit. But the tolerance line is where I can't hurt myself. That wouldn't be self-care. That wouldn't be yoga in my tolerance. I can't hurt my business. I can't risk something being wrong. I can't make a decision that I would then personally regret around running my business or whatever, out of tolerance for your opinion. That's not the same thing. Don't conflate those. Here's another thought that I was just having as Carol, as you were talking. Material tolerance being the force something can take before it breaks. Materials have an innate property of tolerance, but physics teaches us in material tolerance that tolerance changes over time. So if you bend a steel bar, it can bend a certain amount and then bend back a certain amount. But if you do that repeatedly, at some point, it will actually break because it can't do that too much.
The stress of it.
There's too much stress at a specific spot. So tolerance in that case gets weaker through exposure to pressure. Follow me?
Yeah, yeah. And that you could extrapolate that to people. It's like you tolerate, and then all of a sudden someone.
And then you snap. And then I'm like, now I'm not acting in my highest image.
Right. You go postal, now, we used to say. You go postal, right?
You go postal. Like, right.
Or the straw that broke the camel's back. All of those things, all of those phrases are what that is describing. Is that
now there's another possibility though. If you look at the human condition, the human body, even your bones, right? As you age, your bones do not become weak and brittle because you put pressure on them, because you do yoga class, because you work out. The actual pressure that is getting pushed against them that they have to tolerate is in fact the thing that makes them strong. Same thing psychologically, like some people, things happen to them in their life and they lose it. And that sucks. And some people, something happens to them and then they figure it out somehow and they're fucking made of steel. You can't steal their peace because they're like, it doesn't matter. Like I've already gone through this shit. It makes you tougher. It's not about being tough, like tough guy stuff. It's about being yoga tough, tolerance tough, where it's like resilient. And so it's like you could tolerate things in a way that over time are going to make you break. Or you can understand and accept a certain amount of tolerance in your business because it's actually building resilience.
That what
Same,
doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
right. It's like those are two sides of the same coin. I think, fuck, running a yoga studio, running a wellness business is like a great testing ground for building resilience and tolerance, for
Well,
sure.
I great example of kind of like with tolerance, with boundaries, with knowing. I recently had a client where they have a woman and they basically had to exit her out of the business, not for any reason that we would think of, normal reasons or the reasons that come to mind being inappropriate, something like whatever. It's like the woman was suffering, unfortunately, from early onset dementia. And it was becoming increasingly unsafe for her to be in class
Right.
because part of a dementia is you start, balance kind of goes, spatial awareness. And like one day she bashed her head. It's a hot studio, Bikram studio. She bashed her head against the mirrors when she was, came down. And then another time she almost knocked, she almost knocked another client over in a balancing posture. And so the owner had to have a very difficult conversation with her husband and said, and what I thought he came up with, we talked about this and we came up with this as a strategy. And I thought it was very tolerant, was we would love to have her continue to practice, but somebody needs to come with her and be next to her the whole class. Because the other thing is she was getting up and wandering around the room, during the class. So he was like, it's becoming unsafe for her.
Yeah.
It's unsafe for our other clients. And of course, the poor husband in his state was like, fuck you, you're horrible, I can't, blah, blah, blah. We've been members for years, all this stuff. But the owner, and I give him so much credit, he just was like, we have to do this. He had set that boundary. His tolerance was there, but he had that boundary as like, I have to put her safety first and the safety of others first.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, and it
that's
sucks he had to take shit on it because I mean, obviously that's highly emotionally triggering for the husband. So understandable. There's the tolerance, like I don't have to take this on. I can have a loving, detached
conversation
with you because this sucks and it makes perfect sense. You'd be pissed, but that's not the intention here. And this is a good example, I think, Terry, too, because I think that in the yoga world, what we see a lot of the time is people touting inclusivity to such an extreme that they would think that like this is this one person in this one instance that is very extreme and actually dangerous. They should therefore tolerate it. But it's like, what's your product? You aren't for absolutely 100% everyone. There are scenarios where you've got to find an alternative thing. It's not a person, struggling with something like dementia should absolutely be doing yoga every day. And a public hot Bikram yoga class and how it's run isn't structurally built for that person.
Yeah, he did offer.
So
He said,
you got to find some other thing.
yeah, he
So
said, he did say, we have teachers, I could set you up and we could do like in-home privates, but of course the challenge is you don't have, everybody wants the heat, particularly with hot yoga. But yeah,
right.
it's like, you can only do so much before it becomes affecting others. And then it's like, where does that line go?
Yeah. I want to spin it another way to something Carol brought up before we jumped in the call. So I think there's also like tolerating your own bullshit is a huge part of being an owner. Like, I don't know. I've never met an owner. Leave a comment if you disagree with this statement. I've never met an owner that would disagree with this. Like running a yoga studio, your own bullshit will end up in your face. It will hit you in the face. You cannot avoid it. Yeah. So I think that's a positive thing if you decide to take it as such. I'm not saying this is negative. I'm saying it's like that's the nature of being an entrepreneur and running a business and everything. Uh, so, but part of that, the reason I say that is this tolerance around your team, your own, and your business's maybe shortcomings. And that might be in belief, it might be in planning, it might be in whatever. So it's like if you put everything on the line and you have debt and whatever else to have a yoga studio, but then you're going to tolerate that you can't afford to pay the bills, like that doesn't make sense. Or you're like, I'm going to tolerate the idea that like I don't like selling or I don't believe in sales, like that old conversation in the yoga world. That's
Oh,
not
yeah.
tolerance. That's actual risk. Like, to say it rudely, like that's stupidity. So come at me. But I don't know.
So you were
Carol, I'll
talking
let you.
about, yeah, you were talking about that before, Kel. What were you saying before we gone on about that? The sales?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some conversations recently with several owners that, we're talking about sales training and all those things, and they're on board. And at the same time, we talked about with one owner where I was saying they do like a monthly free class out at a different location. And I was like, oh, do you have a QR code where somebody could sign up for your intro or some kind of like, hey, come see us. Just let them know that we're a brick and mortar yoga studio. And the owner was like, well, I just don't want to come off as really salesy at that, event. And, you know, it goes back to what are you tolerating? Because a lot of these owners are paying themselves very little or nothing at all. And maybe it isn't as the pain point maybe isn't they're tolerating what they have right now, but we're trying to give you the tools to bring more people in. Yet there's this conflict, they're conflicted about selling people at a free event you're doing, so we had to talk through like, what is the point of this free event? Like, do you have a goal in it? We talked about what we used to talk about in our sales training a lot is like assuming that people are coming to your free event because they can't afford the yoga is a form of discrimination too. Like, you don't know for sure why they're coming. Maybe
Hell yeah.
it just worked out that this is what they heard about first, but we need to let them know about your studio and get them in. So we I don't know, it's an interesting conversation because I feel like a lot of it's that age old thing that we see where people just don't want to come off as salesy from their yoga studio, but you're selling an amazing product. So let's go. Come on.
I've the two major comments. Will jump in on this, I'm sure, being the core person who she does the first free coaching call.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
those of you who haven't met Maria. So, but the two things, this is the perfect example of like, I'm going to tolerate, and look, dude, I've seen this for fucking over a decade in the yoga world, and I find myself getting old and craggy as shit about it. You run a studio for 5 years and it's acceptable to be like, well, I haven't actually paid myself in 5 years, 8 years or whatever. But I run my car through the business. So you're like, one, that's probably illegal, but but two, I know there's in the States, it's weird. In Canada, it's illegal. Like, that's not, tax code does not, you can't just run things to your business willy-nilly. There have to be clear delineation between business, private. But anyways, the acceptance, that tolerance, what that looks like and what you don't understand in the beginning, what you don't see until you're there, is that's the tolerance on situation where you're gonna ultimately break. You're gonna get to year 8 and then be like, fuck this, or something goes sideways and you don't have the cash flow and you don't know what to do and you don't want to go back in debt, or you gotta re-sign the lease and it's going up by $5,000 a month or whatever else, and then like you're closed. You sink your battleship. It's over. That's that kind of tolerance. And so the simple things is why we get all fired up about the sales stuff and being like, no, like, you got to promote what you're doing. It's okay. That's number one. Number two, the only other comment I would make, this is where, Maria, I'd be curious on your thoughts on this. Sales specifically, and in the context of a yoga business or a wellness business where like you're offering a service that like can really positively impact someone's life,
Why wouldn't you
maybe
want
save their
everybody to buy
fucking life.
that?
Right, exactly. So it's like this thought of, well, I don't want to be salesy. And I don't know the owner specifically we're talking about, so it's no shade on any individual. But that entire thought is a really good testing ground to push you in your own personal confidence in yoga practice as well. Because what I hear when I hear that now is I'm scared of feeling uncomfortable personally. Like it's your own bullshit 9 out of 10 times. And it's easy to hide behind the superficial, like,
I don't want to be salesy.
virtue signaling of like, well, I don't want to be salesy, you know? Like what I hear is I don't want to feel uncomfortable offering something to someone and have them say no to me and then me feel awkward or weird. And a lot of that's because I don't know how to do it.
Well, if you really think about it, all of life is sales. Everything is sales. It's I want something, you want something, we agree on something. Right? It's like I have something that you want, you have something that I want, we figure out a way to exchange. It could be goods, it could be services, it could be sex, it could be whatever. And so we're constantly selling, whether people realize it or not.
Have you ever watched the show House of Cards
Yeah.
with Kevin Spacey? In the first season, this is my favorite quote. It's not true. It's not a true quote, but it's like for the characters, it's such a brilliant quote. He says, everything in life um, is about sex, except for sex. Sex is about power.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh shit, it's just so good. All right, so I don't know why you made me think of that. Because Terry's always working sex into our conversation.
Or lack,
Every
or lack thereof.
TV Terry's bringing it back in.
Oh.
Oh, we're gonna have to do a whole episode just on sex as a yogapreneur. That won't get us blown up on the
Okay,
internet.
so here I'll just throw this out. It's just like we're totally is because you know me. It's like
Sorry, I poked the bear.
you know the bear. I'm like dating someone right now. Oh my God, I'm 63 and I'm dating. It is just like
Hell
so
yeah, you are.
bizarre to
And he's
me.
40?
No, he's not 40. But anyway, maybe I should go south instead of north. Um,
Oh my gosh. Hey,
whatevs.
community health, sexual health, emotional health, it's all part of health. Got to be
It's all
part of
part
all
of
of it.
it. Anyway,
Yep.
so Maria, what are you noticing on free coaching calls around?
So, Maria,
On that note.
sales,
On that note,
sales.
Oh, too
Maria,
funny.
I'd be curious on your commentary around this like comfort in the sales role when you have to have a more uncomfortable, like more taboo conversation
yeah.
in the midst of it and like being able to stand in confidence in doing that.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that kind of kept creeping into my head while you guys were talking. And one thing I think, and tell me if you agree with this or not, but I see a lot of like imposter syndrome or like that kind of feeling when I'm talking to studio owners. And it's like, it doesn't feel authentic to them. And they also don't feel like the shoe fits, right? Like
Mm.
it comes back to that like anti-business narrative that surrounds the yoga world. It's like I don't feel like it's right for me to sell this product or service to someone, and I hear that a lot. And I hear I don't want to feel salesy. So one of the things that I started asking during the free coaching call is, okay, tell me about your experience in sales. Like, what is it about sales that makes you feel icky? And I was on a call yesterday and she was like, oh, it's like, I think of like a used car salesman. And I'm like,
Always, yeah.
yeah, yeah, always. It's always that same one. And I'm like, okay, like tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what was it about that specific experience? I'm assuming you've had one before that makes you feel not great about sales. she went on to explain like, some of the language that they were using and the fact that I felt like I can't leave that place without buying something.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, yeah. So, nobody likes to be sold, but everybody likes to buy, right? That kind of notion. But then I was like, all right, let's switch the narrative a little bit. And I was like, when you're talking about your yoga studio, and I was asking her like a series of questions to try to get her to tell me what language she could use that felt more authentic to her when it came to sales, right? So we didn't
Right.
want to even use that word. I was like, take that word out of your vocabulary if it elicits a negative feeling. And then, through more and more questioning, we got to the words offering and what was the other one? Options, opportunities. It was offering
Uh,
opportunities. And I was like,
hell yeah.
okay. I'm like, I was waiting for that. And I was like, let's use that verbiage in creating your sales pitch, right? And she's like, well, yeah, okay. Like, how about we say something like, I'd love to offer you the opportunity to obtain a regular practice because, you said like during your intro month, you started to feel a lot more mental clarity and you started to feel this flexibility in your body that you didn't even know that you had before. How great is that? You know?
Mm.
And she was just like, yeah, that feels a whole lot better. And it was all just like, it's all mental, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, this doesn't feel so unnatural and uncomfortable to me. It feels more like something that I would say. So it kind of got rid of that imposter syndrome, which I was seeing with her. And it just made it feel like something, yeah, more natural and authentic to herself. And the kind of like one thing I've been saying too is like, hey, listen, like technically I'm a salesperson for the YC. Like that's how I'm measured. It's like, how many new clients are we getting? My success is directly tied to that. Like that's my KPI, right? I was like, but I don't feel like a salesperson. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like a coach. I'm a business coach, just like everyone else. I'm simply coaching you and giving you the opportunity to decide for yourself as to whether or not coaching with the YC is a good option for you,
Yep. Exactly.
right?
There's I was you were saying that, Maria, about offering, is there is a software company out there called Offering Tree. It's one of the smaller ones. They started out just for like like really yoga teachers and kind of came about right around the pandemic. So like if you're an independent yoga teacher and you're doing classes all over the place, you could have like a little CRM system that people could go to and buy things and pay, blah, blah, blah. And then they expanded to studios several years back. And I have a client that has been using them and they call their pricing options offerings. They don't use the word pricing option, right?
Mhm.
It's in their language and their, vernacular. It's all, these are offerings.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
when you
You
said
can
that,
be,
I was like, oh, wow, yeah, that's Offering Tree does that. It's exactly what they remove that whole pricing card. It's an offering. Here are our offerings.
well, and look, there couldn't possibly be more ego than saying, I don't feel comfortable with sales and I don't want to convince someone of something from the perspective that like you think that you can. You think you can convince me of something?
Yeah.
You can reassure me, you can help me double down on some existing beliefs, you can help me have a new way of looking at something. You can't convince me of something. Only I can do that. So like the negative side of sales is the convincing thought. The job of sales
Mhm.
is to serve somebody else, it's to help people. Maria, your job is a great example. Here's the real proof of it is buyer's remorse. It's on the other side. This is how you know. And for a yoga studio owner, same thing. It's like if I talk to Maria about joining membership at the studio and you want to improve your life through a yoga practice and you want to practice regularly, and then the membership's the gateway to do that. And then so you say yes and you buy it. And then afterwards, you're like, great. Now like, we're not even thinking about that anymore. And I feel good about coming and practicing. There's no buyer's remorse. That's a win all around versus taking the coaching side as the example. If our sales tactics were like to put pressure on people and wheel and deal and fucking whatever, and then you get someone that's like, okay, fine, I'll pay for it and join coaching. Like, that's the worst client ever. I don't even want to coach you as a coach because you feel awkward right from the get. And you might have that buyer's remorse, like, should I have spent this money or not? Like, and that all starts right from the opening communication of, yeah, the opportunity that's being offered, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sales is a good testing ground for the dissolution of ego and,
Mm-hmm.
expansion of your own actual confidence. Here's the interesting psychological element around this too, right? Imposter syndrome is a hyper common scenario the more successful somebody is.
Mm-hmm.
The more success you have, the more likely it is that you will have imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome on the whole is skyrocketing across all Western culture as we're culturally becoming more successful. But it's not the success itself that makes the imposter syndrome prop up. It's the externalization that makes you feel like an imposter. You only feel like an imposter when your value system is based on things that are not inside of yourself. So if I'm selling you something because I need the money from the sale, and that's the core reasoning behind why I'm doing it, and I'm validating my own awesomeness by whether or not I close the sale with you, that's where I'll have imposter syndrome. Or if I'm validating like my studio is successful because it looks this way, or these people said this thing, and I don't internally reconcile and feel that, I will have imposter syndrome. The flip side of the exact same coin is confidence. The opposite of imposter syndrome is confidence, not authenticity. Authenticity is even higher than that. So you're going to feel like an imposter if it's something external and that's the only validation system. Confidence comes from you reconciling internally within yourself what we're talking about, which is I'm offering a service that really helps people. And in service to them, I am willing to get over my own shit and uncomfort and have a face-to-face conversation and just offer them this thing. And I can be non-attached to the outcome because I don't have enough ego to think that I'm going to convince them of fucking anything. Carol says no, I can accept that. But what I can't accept or tolerate, let's bring it back to the start of our conversation, is I'm just going to not even fucking try and then not make money and then close my doors and not help fucking anybody because I'm too uncomfortable to say, yo, do you want to join membership? And confidence comes from internally reconciling that and then consistently doing it. You build more confidence through proof that you've made that decision for that thing to happen.
Yeah.
That was a lot. Sorry.
That was, yeah, no. I
There
had
was
my,
something else there too. I
yeah.
lost it. I wasn't too much of a rant.
I had my huge imposter syndrome. I've shared this story a number of times. Is like when I went to my first Mind Body University and Roxy Berger started on the KPI presentation. And I had to I got up and left. I was at the Chicago School of Business. I went in the women's bathroom, locked myself in the stall, and burst into tears. Because I'm like, how did I ever think I could even own my own business? I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like such an imposter. How did I ever think I could? All of those doubts and fears and everything just came like crashing down on me in that stall at the Chicago School of Business. At the end of the day, it's, the tolerance is like, okay, that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Put your big girl panties back on and say, go back out and figure it out. But yeah, totally. I mean, Carol, have you ever experienced like imposter syndrome in life?
Sure. When I started coaching.
Right.
I had to remind myself, 19 years of experience alone has to be like worth something, but yeah, I was thinking about when I opened the doors though, maybe being 25 was the best thing because I was like, I got this. We're doing this. Like there was no, I
Yeah.
felt like I knew everything. So
Yeah.
And there is that ignorance of youth, right? It's like you just feel you just don't know what you don't know. And sometimes that's a good thing. And they, particularly if you get older, I mean, even as a young adult, but one of the biggest fears for adults, and I think the older you get, I think it becomes even more so, is fear of looking ridiculous. Fear of, of being perceived as looking ridiculous or something like that. It's not like fear of
Mm.
failure. It's like, and that's what keeps people from trying something new, is they're fearful of what
Totally.
they look like doing it. And, and all of that stuff. And I do believe, like, that's the thing about when you're young, you're fearless. You look at, you're fearless. I mean, it really is true. I find myself, and it
Mm.
was a good example. Like I used barreling downstairs and not even thinking about the consequences. And I hate to say it, but now I'm like, having fallen downstairs not too long ago, I'm more cautious because and having passed out and broken my nose and all of these things, it's like, I am definitely more cautious than I was when I was in my 20s, for sure.
Right. And
interesting about
that's just truth.
And that's
Go ahead.
something to keep in mind if you are dealing with older individuals, particularly if you're young and your demographic of your studio is older. It's like you need to keep some, as a studio owner, you need to keep these avatars in mind because, understanding where they're coming from in their life experience is also very important to know in your business as well. And there's my rant on that. Okay, mic drop.
Carol, you were going to say?
well, it was bringing it for me. It's sort of taking it in a different direction. But I had lunch yesterday with a friend who owns a completely separate type of business. But she and her mom and sister who own the business were wanting to do a podcast. And she's like, I keep getting drawn to that and I keep going back to it. And she was like fearful to start something new, but we talked about like not being tied to the outcome so much, but as long as you're creating something and you're excited about it, that's what's going to draw people in, right?
Yeah.
So I know it's not exactly related, but it was just sort of starting something new or feeling that imposter, like she doesn't feel ready to do it. But we talked a lot about, just she feels like that's where she's being pulled, and that it's exciting to her. And I'm like, well, then just that means you have to do it. And also, her uncle told her that she was never going to do it. They were just going to keep talking about it and it will never happen. So she's like, well, now we fucking have to do it.
Yeah.
Like, now that's what I needed to like go for it.
Yeah.
So
Haters
know.
are helpful.
Totally. It kind of reminds me of like just embracing that beginner's mindset in like everything that you do, and being authentic to yourself. Again, just tying it back to that because it just makes so much sense, right? If authenticity is higher than confidence and confidence comes from competence and vice versa, because those two things really feed into each other.
Yep.
But, in order to get started with anything, you have to be comfortable and okay with failure and rejection. So like that's what's so great about kids. Kids don't give a fuck. They just do whatever they want.
Well,
And that's why kids are awesome.
that's the best
Or
marketing slogan of all time. Just do it.
yeah, absolutely best marketing slogan of all time.
Yeah.
Kids, side note, like that's actually a kid level problem is how young it is that changes now. That's the that's the complicated part. But competence breeds confidence. But the unspoken detail there is that it's not the competence itself that makes you confident. It's how you feel about your competence. The fact that you can do something doesn't make you confident. It's the fact that you have this feeling and the belief in your core that I will be able to succeed at this. And if I fail, it's not the end of the world. I will be okay. Like that's actually where confidence, it's an internal thing, hence the internal external. So I love that like confidence, competence thing. This to me, I'm gonna go on a big rant at the start of the yoga summit this year. on this. We were talking a little bit about, the yoga is business conversation, but in the end, one of the culminating points is that it's all yoga. Like the purpose of yoga, in my definition, is about gaining awareness. And if you have true awareness, internal awareness, then all of these other things fall into it and you live authentically. The definition of living authentically is something in the realm of in alignment with one's true self. The misinterpretation of how simple that sort of definition is in the yoga world goes back to this sales stuff, where you think you're like, I don't believe in sales. It's too superficial. You don't believe in, is that true? Like, or is it that you don't believe in your product? Or is it that you don't believe in feeling uncomfortable by pressuring someone into giving you their money? That's a valid way to say it. So like, let's not do that. But does it mean you actually don't believe in sales or selling or someone buying something? I don't know.
Which makes me think, okay, it's like, that's a contradiction, because if you open your own business, I guess it goes to, is this just a passion project? It's like,
Oh, you buy yourself a job. You just buy yourself a job.
And you're not even buying yourself a job at that point if you don't care about sales, because if you're not making any money, you're not even buying yourself a job. You're buying yourself a hobby.
Yeah.
I mean, and if that's how you want to run your business, that's fine. That's no shade.
It's the word sales that people get hung up on.
Yeah,
it's why we use it. It's why we use it so bluntly. Like we have to demystify it, but it's the word sales specifically that has the negative connotation. We've said it a lot of times, and when I say it at sales trainings on the grounds, like people cringe, like they do not like this. And it's not that it's the all end all truth, because I don't think that anything is. But the challenge thought is, if you are completely unwilling to offer your product to someone, if you are completely unwilling to, quote, sell something to someone, I don't mean sell pushing, I mean sell offering service to someone else, then maybe you don't believe in your product. And you say that to a group of yoga teachers and they get pissed the fuck off. They do not like to hear that. So use that one sparingly and contextually appropriate, and be prepared for the potential like deeper conversation to unpack that thought. But you can't sell something you don't believe in. Mm-hmm. Therefore, in reverse, if you're unwilling to sell something, do you really believe in it? Like, I mean, like really, really.
Okay.
I'll stand at the studio and sell someone a yoga class all fucking day, every day, all the time. I love it. I think it's fun. And it's not about closing the sale. I have like winning in a sale, getting the close, like that is not incentivizing for me. It does not motivate me. I get nothing from that at all. What I get is the conversation with the human and seeing how we can offer them something that's just awesome. That's the part that's good about it. That's where it comes from. Yeah.
Okay. So here's an interesting thing. I just looked up the origin of the word sell, to sell or sale. And part of it is to give.
Yeah. It's so good. I didn't know that.
The word sales, the word sell. The word sell comes from the old English word sellen, which originally meant to give. It can also mean to give up someone to an enemy, to betray, or to exchange for money. But it's actually, the root is to give.
To sell someone out. I like that.
You're giving your service in exchange for, and it's the barter system. If you go way back in ancient human society, people were bartering, exchanging furs for this for that, right? So
trade, yeah.
It's really, and the origin of the word salary? Salary comes from the origin of salt. And people used to get, because salt was such a rare commodity, people would be paid in salt because it was such a high value item. And that's where the origin of salary comes from. So, but Josh, you can't pay us in salt.
Oh shit, I was just gonna say that's absolutely what we're switching the paychecks to. 2025. Just gonna send you guys kilo bags of salt.
Because you
Hey,
could,
Terry, I have direct access to that super rare gold label salt from the north of the Sea of Cortez. That's like some of the best salt on the planet. So
I might, because
premium,
salt is my favorite
it's premium
condiment.
salt. It's
Okay.
mine right now. I'm off sugar. Sugar's mine, but I'm off sugar right now. So salt's suddenly very important. I put salt in my coffee this morning. Delicious,
What?
by the way. You should definitely do that. Yeah.
Put
Just a little bit, just the little pink little.
salt in your beer is really good,
Yes.
Yeah.
particularly like light beers or like a
Yeah.
Corona. It's salt and beer. The other thing is plain Greek yogurt with a little bit of salt. Very tasty.
Interesting.
Yep.
Very tasty. Yes.
We're gonna try that later.
Yeah. Because if because most yogurt, if you're buying flavored yogurt, you look, it's mostly sugar. If you're off of sugar. But plain yogurt, even if you put some fruit in it and just sprinkle a little bit of salt on it, mix it up. Mwah.
All right.
There you go.
There we go.
There's a salt lesson of the day.
God,
That's Terry's Tinder profile. Like takes it easy on stairs, loves salt.
Hey, and I'm not, no, I am not doing online dating. I'm just saying that straight up. I have not gone down that dark path. So
I have no comment. I'm not in that game at all.
it's, yeah. Another,
It's like I don't know if we should touch this one.
yeah. The grass is always greener over, the grass is always greener over the septic tank. So there you have it.
I mean, that's factually correct.
Yeah. I've used this one before. There's a humorist that she was very popular in the 70s and 80s. Her name's Irma Bombeck. She's from Dayton, and she had a nationally syndicated column. She was a humorist. She wrote a number of books, and one of the books, and they were like just little short stories kind of thing. Kind of think chicken soup for your soul kind of thing, but on the humor side. And one of the titles of her book was "The Grass is Always Greener Over the Septic Tank." When the grass is always greener on the other side, which is true. You think something's bad in your life and you say, oh, over here, it looks really, really nice over there. But guess what? The grass is always greener over the septic tank. So yeah, I love that expression.
This brings our conversation full circle to end us off for today. Anyways, around tolerance, if this is in the entrepreneurial world, there's a bunch of dudes touting this conversation right now, but it's an old one. It comes from a book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, I believe. I'm not 100% sure that that's the one, but that's where I think I first read it. But it's the idea, like, if you were trying to build the most powerful, let's call it, entrepreneur, or the most powerful human, what would you do? Make everything as easy as possible and never have them put up with any shit, and just give them everything and have them never have to learn how to tolerate things and have no variety of outcome or whatever? Or would you make things kind of hard? I don't mean hard bad, like traumatizing hard, but would you push their tolerance slowly but surely over time? And that's why in a yoga class, it's posture holding and stillness. Because you have to fucking stay in the posture when your brain says, I don't want to stay in the posture anymore. Like, that's the whole point on the psychological tolerance, toughness, build-up side. Anyways, grass is greener over top of the septic tank. The difficulties, the things you have to tolerate, that's what creates growth.
Yep.
Always.
A quote that I go back to called, "If you're irritated by every rub, how will you be polished?"
Oh, shit. That's a good one.
Like that.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Man, Carol, you're so mysterious. You just come out of nowhere with these things because you never see it coming. Oh my God. All right. We have, I think 2 spots left at the summit. Like, there's just like a couple hanging there that are available. Last minute trip, do it. I'll pick you up at the airport if we got to. Let's make it happen. This entire conversation this is what it's like at the summit is you're in there with peers and we're just discussing the reality of renting a studio and more pragmatically getting all your ducks in a row, so to speak, on like, okay, what do I actually need to focus on? Where should I be putting my energy versus what should I not tolerate or where should I not be losing my energy? What am I trying to even achieve? Okay, sales, I believe in sales, but like, what is my goal with selling something? You know, like, how much am I going to pay myself? 10 grand, 20, 100, far? Like, what is it? It's getting all of that stuff in order. It's clarifying so that by the time you leave the summit, for the next year at least, you know what you're doing. So you're not spending time thinking about what should or shouldn't I do, where should or shouldn't I put my time. You just do it.
And then if something else comes along, it's like, sorry, I've got my plan. We'll put that on the list to review when we get through all these other things. So it does help you. And
It
you know,
speeds
just
you up. It speeds you up exponentially. It helps you focus. Yeah. It
like
de-stresses things a lot.
it does. And the average summit attendee averaged a 33% sales increase this year so far. And then I was with one of your clients, Carol. I was on with her pre-summit call the other day, and in the call we were talking, she said that she has a completely different business than she did a year ago because of the coaching and the summit and the YC. So it's like, and she got her voice broke and her eyes teared up a little bit because it really, it's helped her transform her business, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah. So whether you're just scaling it up, you're getting ready for an exit, or you're like, I need to fucking make some money here, or I got to grow my team, whatever it is, that's what the summit's for. It's the intensive to get all of that prepped, ready to go. Whole coaching team is there to help you out. And you got the peer-to-peer network to get to bounce ideas around, hear what's working for other people, see what's going on. I think we're moving into an interesting...
And we have fun.
And it's fun. There's that part too. And actually, I don't know. You can talk to past summit attendees about that, but I think the summit's very fun. We try to keep a good balance of like, yeah, work hard, play hard for a week. So, yeah. All right. I think that's it for today. Thanks for jumping on, you guys.
Next week will be poolside. We will be doing the roundup because Carol, Maria, myself, and maybe we can even drag Mara. We can have a poolside. We'll all be at the yoga house in Salilita, Mexico next Thursday.
I have a huge blow up unicorn I'll be on. So, stay tuned. Stay tuned. All right. Go do some yoga. Go help some people.
Have a good day, everybody.